Hey, it's Heidi Rain. Welcome back for another episode of Addiction and Codependency Breakthrough. I am so glad that you're here. I love my podcast listeners, but I have to tell you, you are missing out today on one little tiny thing, and that is this epic, ridiculous hair that my YouTube wonderful subscribers are going to see because I don't know, this is what a hot roller will get you. Don't recommend it, but we're gonna roll with it. It's kind of like reminiscent of like a 70s or 80s housewife, not real sure. However, it's not about me. I don't come to these videos for me, right? I come for you. So let's leave my hair out of it and get down on what we want to talk about today. And it is such an important topic. Uh, it's the topic of self neglect whenever you're dealing with an addict or an alcoholic in your life. And it shows up a couple different ways. So I'm going to get into that with you today and talk about, ask you some questions, about how well you're taking care of yourself, what you can do if you're not taking care of yourself, and what to do when you have guilt for actually taking care of yourself when your loved one is struggling, which I know is one of the main reasons that you don't take care of yourself when you're dealing with a family member who's struggling. So if you're new here, I just want to take a minute and say, welcome home. Man, am I glad you found me. I am so grateful that you're here. I'm on a mission to help you. I have dedicated my life to helping people that are impacted by addiction and give you the strategy that you need to survive this, give you the coping mechanisms, give you the insight, the education, and most importantly, the support to come alongside of you and be with you so you're not so alone on this journey, because let's face it, you can feel so alone, especially if you're dealing with this in secret, if nobody else knows what's going on, if you have yourself what we call a functioning addict or alcoholic and everybody thinks it's fine, but the worst behavior is saved for you. I mean, we can go on and on. So if you're curious about more help and more support, I've created programs just for you. I've created coaching opportunities just for you. And you can go over to HeidiRain.com and check that out. You can also take a personality codependent test that I made just for you over there as well at HeidiRain.com. So let's get into it. I have had this question come up so many different ways, and I want to introduce this from a story, from a client's perspective. Okay, now whether you're a parent or a spouse, I've got you covered today on all angles. But I remember one day I was running a women's group inside of a treatment center, and we were processing and running group, and there were about 25 women that were there, and I was asking questions, and we were checking in. And one of the girls, she was like, devastated. I mean, you could look over at her. She was crying and hysterical. We were talking about family. We were talking about family members and the impact of addiction, et cetera. And she raised her hand and I said, yes. I said, hey, tell me what's going on. She was like, I can't deal with it. I'm so devastated. My parents are horrible. They are horrible people. Okay. And she's really distraught, and everybody's in the group and we're all kind of like, oh man, I wonder what what are we going to hear? I mean, my goodness. Right. So she just keeps going. And I say, well, tell us what happened. Tell us what happened. She was like, I mean, she could barely get the words out, I decided I came into treatment and I mean, sobbing. And long story short, she finally got out the words. Her biggest problem here was I came into treatment and my parents went on a cruise. Okay. She was devastated because she had checked herself into treatment and her parents took that opportunity to go cruising around town, go on a cruise, go on a love boat, probably bigger, okay, and enjoy their lives. Now, I scanned around the women's group for reactions and I was like, I wonder how everybody's going to react to this. And some of the women you could see were like, oh, those jerks. Wow, that's terrible. I can't believe that they would do that to you while you're in treatment. And other people who had been through this once or twice or 15 times were looking at each other kind of, not laughing at her, but just kind of like amused at the situation. And she was looking to me to see how was I going to split the room? Who was I going to align with? Was I going to say they are the worst people on the planet for going on a cruise and leaving you while you're in treatment? Or was I going to say something different? And I looked at her and I said, wow. I said, I'm really sorry that you're feeling that way. And good for them. Good for them, and she could have if she woulda had a weapon, it probably woulda came in my direction. She was not happy with my response, and she was really upset. "How could you say that? How dare you say that? What do you mean? You have no idea." And I said, "Because what the parents do, the very definition of codependency is when your family members or your loved ones are with you in a relationship, they get to be happy when you're happy. They get to be okay when you're okay. They get to let their guard down when you're safe. They get to, th- the codependence is my mood and my feelings and my how I deal in my life is directly dependent upon how you're doing. You come first instead of me. And listen, our society trains that when you have a kid, your children always come first. And so we get this really confused. And what I said to her was the very best thing that your parents can do while you're safe in treatment, they can't do anything to help you anyway. We're here. We're the professionals. We're the ones that are helping you. Your parents don't have any way to help you. All the support is here. All you're really going to do, probably, if you want to know the truth, is end up manipulating them from treatment anyway. And boy, now I really she looked at me like I was about to get it, right? But luckily enough, I had these participants, I had these students, I had these clients for 30, 60, or 90 days. And by the end of it, they were thanking me for sharing this perspective with them. The healthier they became, the more they understood what I was trying to say to them. So point is, you are not just allowed to take care of yourself whenever your loved ones are in treatment or struggling. I know lots of people say the only time I can breathe is when they're in treatment. The only time I can feel safe and go to sleep is when they're in treatment. I sleep the best when they're in treatment. But I want to help you to maintain that level of sanity and peace no matter what they're doing. We think about being like a Jedi in the middle of the storm, and everything can be happening around us, but we maintain our own psychological, emotional, financial, spiritual health, even in the midst of the storm. We think about a willow tree. I use that analogy a lot. I love trees and I love willow trees in particular. They're just so beautiful. And they have such a complex root system. They're rooted down into the ground and their roots are really deep. They can grow through concrete. I mean, they're really deep. But if you wouldn't notice, but this comes up and it's this like beautiful, graceful, elegant, kind of whimsical thing that's like looks reminds me of a dancer, and it's just kind of when the storm's coming, it's dancing and it doesn't break, it doesn't crack, it just bends with the storm. And that level of certainty and being able to weather the storm of the willow tree is a direct result of its root system. And what is your root system? When somebody is spinning out, what roots can you grow so that you are able to weather any storm? Well, one of the roots has got to be self care. You can't abandon or neglect yourself when you're dealing with an addict and alcoholic. And now I know you've heard this a million ways. You've got to fill up your love cup, honey, before you fill up somebody else's love cup. You've got to put the mask on yourself first before you put I could give it to you a million ways. But what I'm saying is it's harder. That's just like no shit, right? Why is that so hard for us to put the mask on ourselves? Because when we're in the state that we're in, when we're dealing or living with an addict or an alcoholic, it is chaos, it is anxiety, it is mayhem. And you're not in a mental state to be like, oh, let me put my mask on. It's hard for you to do that, is what I'm saying. So it has to be the only way to overcome that is not to make it emergent, like put the life mask on you first, but to make it consistent, make it a practice that you have every day that's non negotiable no matter what's going on. Now, I do this in my own life, and it's difficult. Trust me, dealing with depression, dealing with anxiety, dealing with life, it's difficult to commit to a system of self care. But I want you to start to think about doing that because if you don't, this illness will eventually end up taking you out, mentally and physically, because all of your energy and all of, you're just exhausted. So, what I'm going to encourage you to do is start to think about if self care was a priority and you had permission and it wasn't just a nice thing to do, it was a requirement for you to take care of yourself when you're dealing with an addict and alcoholic. How would you switch up your routine? Well, Heidi, I can't possibly leave them. I can't leave in an hour to go to the gym. I can't go and be with my friends and get out socially. I can't do that because I'm worried what's going to happen to them and I have to babysit them. And here's what I want to tell you with love from the depths of my heart to you. That's not working. You sacrificing your life and being home and on guard and watching every single move, if that worked, we wouldn't be here. Okay? So it's you're not the warden. You're not the police officer. You're not the sober house. You're not the sober coach. And if you if we work together, I'll teach you how to delegate that responsibility so that you just get to be you again. You just get to be wife, you just get to be mom, you just get to be whoever you are in this relationship dynamic, partner, whoever. You just get to be you. And you're losing yourself in this because all of your attention and all of your focus and all of your energy is going into them. So it's just a simple message today. It's a simple talk about reminding you that you have permission to be able to take care of yourself and not just the bare minimum. Let's go a step above that. What about that family that went on the cruise? How I started this story today. What about them? Is that a bit drastic? Is that a bit much? Like, could you book a vacation? Could you go somewhere? Could you join a program and carve out your Wednesday nights or your Tuesdays just for you? Could you do that? Is that okay for you to do? When you start to question, am I allowed to be happy when they're suffering? That is the very definition of codependency. Of course, you're allowed to be okay when they're suffering. You can have compassion for them that they're suffering, but you don't have to suffer with them. I remember one time I was doing a class and I said, "Hey, what's love? What's love? How do you know you're loved?" You know, we were talking about needs and wants in our group. How do you know you're loved? And one of the participants said, "Well, I know I'm loved when somebody will suffer with me." And I thought, well, there it is. That's why you're here. Because we are trained into the idea that in order to love someone, I have to suffer with you. And the truth is that I get to maintain my level of individuality. I get to have my own emotions, my own thoughts, and my own experiences without absorbing yours and coming and living inside of your agony and pain. I can maintain my peace and still have compassion for you at the same time. Now, that's a difficult skill for a lot of us to learn. And there's a lot of guilt that's associated with living your life while somebody's suffering. But I'm here to help you do that. And not only do I want to help you do that, I want to teach you how to do that because there's so much of you that has sacrificed your life for somebody else that you even forget what it is you want and need. You're at a loss when I ask you, well, what do you want? What do you need? I have no idea, Heidi. I have no idea. I want you to consider taking a time out. And one of the very first things you could do for yourself is to join one of our courses. That's the very first thing that you can do, that you can learn about your needs and wants. And we have two courses. I would say go over and check out and see which one. If you request more information over at HeidiRain.com, there'll be a private video that I'll send to you that'll say explain both groups, and you could pick a track. One is for you need the words, you're on the fence, you don't know if you're going to stay or go in this dynamic. You want to rectify this thing. There's a whole course just dedicated to that. And there is another one just dedicated to you, your codependency recovery, your needs, your wants, your boundaries, everything having to do with you. And that course will change your life. You can do it alone. You can do it on a self study pace, and it's still life changing. Or you can let me come alongside of you and do a coaching experience. You can have a group or you can do private as well. At this time, I'm still offering that. So go over to Heidi Rain and check it out. Now, the very minimum, if you're going to be joining the program at some point, but what can you do today? Today, you can start to ask yourself, what am I neglecting? Where is the neglect? What am I letting go? What am I not doing? And I know you don't feel like doing it, my love, but I'm going to encourage you to write those things down and make a list of at least 3 things a day. Hell, you can start with one thing a day that you know would change, but just start to do 1 to 3 things a day that you know are non negotiable for your mental, emotional, physical health. And then let me know what that is in the comments. Let me know, share with us, share with our community how you're taking a stand to take care of yourself. And until the next time, I love you so much. I want you to be happy and whole and healthy. I mean, you deserve that. We all do. We all do. Even when somebody else is suffering, we still deserve to be ourselves, independent of that person, and keep your me in the midst of your we. Okay. I love you so much. I'll see you in another episode, or I'll see you inside the course. Take excellent care.